Now we share.
Yes.
Now, the last check, can everybody online see and hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, perfect. Good.
Cool.
Very good. Sorry for the delay, yes, but very happy that it's working now. I mean, first hybrid session also for us. I mean, we are all, as the name says, consumer electronics people, so would be surprising if not at some point it would be working. But okay, very good, it is working now. So also from my side, big welcome. We are, to be honest, very honored and humbled that we are the first people who are able to host one of these sessions. Today, if we go to the agenda, I mean, the agenda will be, there it is. Okay, if we go to the agenda, we basically have four topics that we will cover. So I will start very quickly with an update on overview of what rebuy is all about. Some of you might have heard about rebuy already, but just kind of a little bit background. And yeah, I want to explain a little bit why we consider ourselves, so to say, a native circular company. I think a word, Kreislaufwirtschaft, which hasn't been too popular when I joined a few years ago. But talk about this. Then in a second step, Sam, who is our head of partnerships, will talk about basically options for more traditional companies to also become part of the circular economy. And he will talk about kind of our area, which is trade-in programs where we work together with the more traditional companies, and that might also be relevant for other industries, other companies. And then afterwards, we should have time for, wow, it's so super hybrid, for discussions, questions, and feedback. But to be very clear, I'm very happy to keep this as, so to say, informal as possible. So if you have any questions in between, just jump in. And potentially even develop it into a discussion earlier than after the first two agenda points. And then last but not least, already heard, not super unimportant, there's a few snacks for at least all the people in the room and a few drinks. Yes, so much about agenda. As I said, I would like to start a little bit with a background on rebuy and maybe 2-3 sentences before we go to rebuy about myself, and we'll try to keep it short. So my name is Philipp Gattner, the CEO of company. I'm not one of the founders. I only joined, so to say, the train about 7 years ago. So most of the props really go to the founders, and yeah, we are now kind of continuing the path. My background initially was many years ago, economics, economic development. My first job was as a consultant working for an American company called McKinsey here in Berlin. Did this for 6 years, left the company initially with the idea of founding my own company. Thought this should be easy in Berlin, where basically every other person is in the startup area. And I had 2 criteria. On the one hand, not surprisingly, was looking for a business model that makes sense from a business perspective. So something where there was at least some demand. There would also be a chance to see a path of profitability, at least at some point. So kind of the business economics perspective. And then there was also the purpose side, because I always knew that I would probably invest quite a bit of my time in my job. And purpose is very important to me. That's why I was always looking for a business model which did have some sort of purpose. Completely underestimated back then how difficult it would be to find this combination. And kind of fast forward 8 months later, I was still unsuccessful, so to say, unemployed here in Berlin without a job. There was a moment where I came across Lawrence, one of the founders of rebuy, who by now is not with the company anymore, but is running a company called TIA. You might know the green scooters, changing mobility for good. That's kind of the new topic. And he convinced me to join rebuy because it really did fulfill my criteria. Back then, the company was making 50-60 million euros of revenue. So there was clearly some demand and some proof of concept. It wasn't profitable, that I also remember, but there was a path to profitability that from my perspective was quite realistic. And mean, in terms of purpose, that was super obvious. Didn't require much kind of consultant analytics to make the case. That was really at the core of it, and it also became obvious from the discussions with him, the other founders, meeting people, that it was really lived at rebuy. So that's kind of how I ended up at rebuy. That was 7 years ago. I started as my, so to say, the in German you would say the Mädchen für alles or the Junge für alles. So basically jumping on the topics that we considered relevant, but where there weren't any dedicated resources. And then kind of over time, position changed, and I'm the CEO for since 3.5 years ago. Good. I think in order to understand where rebuy is today, or I think in general, it makes sense if you want to understand where a company is today, it does make sense to look a little bit at the roots and how the company has developed over time. Depending on the situation, we consider ourselves a startup, but I think it's not true. As said before, we're 18 years old by now, founded in 2004. So there has been a number of kind of important steps along our path. The company was founded, like I said, 2004 by 5 founders in their shared apartment in their WG in Hasenheide in Neukölln. Typical, I would say, startup story, garage story thing. They initially started with trading mobile games, so used mobile games. Learned that this business model apparently also works for other categories, so expanded into other media categories first. So books, CDs, DVDs were the first ones, and then at a second stage in 2009, also in consumer electronics, starting with mobile phones, but then expanding into tablets, MacBooks, cameras, etc. And those two kind of overarching categories are still our categories until today. And we really put the focus on those two, at least for the time being. I will talk about this in a second. Kind of very similar to startups, the focus during the first years was always on growth. So the company invested in an own brand, in own warehouses, it was developing quite quickly across Germany. And so to say, profitability, structures, both governance and organization were really secondary, which I think works well to a certain level. But a few years ago, 2017, 2018, that did put us in a bit of a more difficult financial situation. And there was also the moment where we switched our strategy, said we need to not only focus on growth, but also profitability. So profitable growth, that's how we call it, the strategy. Amazing, isn't it? That's the strategy basically until today. Always this goal, growing 50 to 20%, but also with an increasing positive EBITDA. If we go to the next slide, Katja, here, it just kind of a bit of an overview of where we stand with rebuy today. So last year, in total, we made a bit more than 180 million of revenues. This year, I'm actually very optimistic that we will break the 200 million line, potentially actually a bit more. As I said, we've been profitable for the past 3 years, since 2019. This will also continue this year. Looking at our customers, we have a reach of about 2.8 million customers. That was the number for last year across 7 markets. So we are based in Germany, Austria, Netherlands, France, Italy, Spain, and also in the UK, but also, to be very honest, focus on the German market. So about 90% of our revenues are coming from Germany. When I talk about that's in the end a bit more than 500, actually a bit more than 550. A bit more than 550 employees across 5 facilities. So we have the location here in Mitte, which we called the headquarter. Then we have 3 operations facilities in Rudo, Falkensee, and in Poznan. We'll talk about this in a second. And then we have the 5th location in the UK, and that's where also Sam is sitting, and from where he will present today. Can you go one back? Yes, thank you. Just shortly, but I think very important. I said sustainability is, of course, core to our business. We also started not only measuring our financial, so to say, impact, but also the environmental impact a year or 2 years ago. And the 2 major KPIs, aside from CO2, is really electronic waste that is being saved, and trees that have been saved by, in this case, giving books a new life. And for the past year, this was 218 tons of electronic waste that have been saved, and 43,000 trees by, like I said, recycling or reselling books. Now, the next one. Yes, I think purpose vision has, during the past few years, become a bit of buzzwords. Usually, I think positive, sometimes not necessarily. I think in the case of rebuy, has really always been very important and kind of core to the business, and also, I would say, lived by the people, started from the founders. Our purpose is that we want to make circular living accessible to all, one transaction at a time. So what does it mean? In the end, we want to make it as easy as possible to participate in the circular economy. We know, and I would be surprised if someone sees it differently, we kind of see that more and more people change kind of their mindsets, want to kind of lead a more sustainable, more circular life, but it's quite difficult to do this because there aren't too many options. Transparency is quite low, and we want to make it as frictionless as possible for people to participate in the circular economy, and so to say, make it mainstream. That's our purpose. Our vision is that we are the category authority, leading by example on sustainability. So key again there, at defining standards of the category. We don't define ourselves by size. We in the end want to build the best product and the best service for our customers, and from our perspective, the size will eventually follow. So that's just very quickly on purpose and vision. Then kind of what does our business model look like, or how does rebuy work? We consider ourselves a C2B2C company, so consumers to business to consumer company, and we are covering the whole value chain. So we do the sourcing ourselves, we do the operations, meaning grading, refurbishment ourselves, and the sales as well. So almost all of the sales are happening in the end on our own website. Now, where are the products coming from that we are eventually selling? Primarily, almost exclusively from individual customers. So people who are selling their books or their mobile phones, laptops, etc., via our own website or via our app. As soon as the products arrive in one of our warehouses, they are, like I said, they're being cleaned, they are being the data is being wiped off, they are being repaired, refurbished if needed, also have our own repair facilities. And as soon as the products are in a 100% functional state, they are available again, they are part of our inventory and then available on our website. So that's basically how the business model works. I think the biggest challenge for us is to bring supply and demand into balance, as you can imagine, and that's where basically our in-house developed pricing algorithm comes into play, and tries to find the mix between high availability and broad assortment, but at the same time not too high depth, to make sure kind of our capital is used as effectively as possible. I think last comment on this one is, as you can see, we are covering the full value chain. And that also, from our perspective, sets us apart from many of the other players in the market who either focus on one of the parts of the value chain or function as marketplaces who don't kind of want to get their hands dirty. I think it might be good reasons for it, but our clear positioning is we cover the full value chain, which puts us in the position that we are able to control the quality, because all the products that we eventually sell have run whatever through our own hands and have been checked by us eventually, and that's also the reason why we are confident enough with the quality that we provide our customers with the 3-year warranty at the end, so longer warranty on the used product than on the new product. Cool. Now, just quickly on the different locations of rebuy. I already mentioned this quickly. So we have our basically headquarters here in the center of Berlin. We have a big warehouse, 18,000 square meter in Rudow, which is focused on media items. Might not be so easy to imagine, or it was at least difficult for me to imagine when I went there for the first time. There's really, by the end of the year, there will be 6 to 7 million media items stored in this warehouse. So it's really a high volume business. We have a second operations center on the other side of Berlin in Falkensee, which we only opened last year, where we do the grading of smartphones, and that's highly automated. So basically, the cleaning process is still being done by humans, by colleagues who are working there. The rest, functional testing, optical testing, is done by machines. So the picture, not the best picture on the right-hand side, but I try to give you a little bit an idea of what this looked like. So really the functional and optical grading is happening by machines in order to make sure we have the highest quality and also ensure objectivity, which you can imagine, especially when it comes to optical grading, is not so easy. So Falkensee focused on mobile phones, where we have the machines now to do it very kind of standardized. We have our third operations location, which is in Poznan, where let's say 150, it's a bit more than 150 colleagues by now, do the more manual grading and also refurbishment of all the other consumer electronics categories. So consoles, cameras, etc., is all being graded there. As you can imagine, I think SLR cameras or Spiegelreflex cameras are a good example. Super difficult to do this in a kind of automated process. That's why there are still educated technicians doing the grading job. Plus, as I said, also the repair refurbishment happening there. So if displays are broken, batteries need to exchange, back covers, camera, etc., need to be repaired. That's all happening by our colleagues in Poznan. And then our most recent office is in the UK, run by Sam. It's a company that we acquired last year because we wanted to move more into the trade and business. And Sam will explain in a second what trade and business basically entails or consists of. Those are our five locations, and I think give a bit of an idea of what we're doing. And then last slide, last but not least, I think we don't have time to go kind of in all of the details of the business and all of the dimensions of the business. I just quickly wanted to touch on the ESG dimension of our business because it's kind of related to what we are also discussing here today. I mean, we consider ourselves a native ESG company simply because, the circular aspect is core to our business. So at least the E is, so to say, naturally covered. 2 years ago, we decided to, I think while this is a good start, we decided 2 years ago that we want to also more actively steer the whole ESG performance, so also the S and the G part. And that's why we formulated last year mid and long-term goals for all three of the dimensions, including measures that from our perspective help us to reach those goals in the mid and long term, summarized it all to also become more accountable in our first sustainability report that we published at the beginning of the year. And from my perspective, it's just a good, well, it proves again how well, so to say, sustainability or in the end, environmental performance can go hand in hand with economic success. And I think that simply puts it black and white and shows it again. Yeah, that's already it with regards to kind of a short introduction to rebuy and overview of what we are doing. I don't know, I'm happy to already do a short break here before handing over to Sam in case you have any immediate questions. Otherwise, I would hand over to Sam. Yeah.
Any possibility to avoid selling stolen goods?
That's a very good question. We had the IRD yesterday with us, and they had 3 questions. One of the questions was also what's happening to stolen goods. The answer is not so easy. So it really depends on the geographic market from where we are sourcing. So in the UK, for example, it's not a problem at all. So there's a central register where all stolen phones are basically covered. Yeah? And we actually do what's it called, some sort of alignment test, or we check whether the phones which are being sent in are in this register, and if they are, then we inform the police and are not purchasing these phones. In Germany, for example, such a register doesn't exist. So on the one hand, we're working together with the police. That's kind of topic number 1. Topic number 2 is we do some sort of plausibility checks. Yeah? So the simplest check is that we, if a person sends in more than X electronics devices in a certain period, then kind of a red light has been turned on, and we check kind of background of the people, get in contact with the police, etc. So short answer, there is no, so to say, official database that we can access, but of course we have, so to say, our own tests and measures to work against it. Are we able to, so to say, 100% make sure that no stolen goods are traded? No, also to be honest, but I think we can reduce it to a really minimum in the end. Yes.
So can you repeat the question, because like then the people
of course
like
yes, probably from the answer this one was obvious.
This one but also repeated now, but like
the future ones I will repeat. Yes, of course. Yes.
Feedback on this question, another tracking question. Do
Yes.
you track once a device comes in, probably gets a unique identifier and it's sold again? Do you track how many devices then come back to you and how many cycles they?
Yes, so we do this. It's and of course one of the goals is to increase this number. At the moment, it's still relatively small. Even the overlap between people buying from us and selling to us, where you would think, yeah, they are already kind of into the circular business model, is really relatively small, and then people kind of buying from us, bringing it back into the circle. It's really higher 1-digit, lower 2-digit ratio. Yeah, certainly potential, I'd say, because I mean we all know those products have the potential to live longer, especially if you invest in repair and refurbishment. Those average 2.5 years that smartphones is normally used doesn't represent the kind of the the potential time it could live. Yes. Yes.
Is it true that one of the bottlenecks or challenges is the trade-in? So that this might be the reason for buying this company in the UK?
Yes.
So you could sell much more if you would have the right products?
Yes, 100%. So clear bottleneck for us is the sourcing side. If we could source more products, we could easily sell more. It's really no problem to sell more. Also, if you go to our website, our biggest challenge is to secure high availability, high selection, so that if people want to search for a certain phone, that this is really available. In order to increase availability, this has been our priority for the past years, and we are still far from perfect. Since this is our biggest challenge or biggest bottleneck, we are on the one hand constantly trying to optimize our own channel. So via our own website, have invested there quite a bit, try to make it as, so to say, frictionless as possible for people to trade in their phones. That's our priority number one. There are a few companies who trade pre-owned products, very often closely working together with the OEMs, with Apple, etc. But also there, the stock is limited. And in our case, it's really in the end a one-digit share that is coming from these players. The margin is lower. It's really, we are using those companies for primarily the most recent models, because iPhone, like at the moment, iPhone 13, there are not too many people who are selling iPhone 13s because it was just came into the market 10 months ago. At the same time, the demand is super high. That's where these wholesalers come into play. And the third the channel is trade-in programs. So really increasing the pie and making it easier also for, so to say, traditional companies, retailers, etc. Sam will talk about this in a second, to provide an option for their customers to bring products.
There's these famous drawers where so many million of smartphones are lying in Germany.
Yes.
Do you think that this is the kind of smartphones they would sell, like iPhones and Samsungs, because it's mainly the hero models, right?
Exactly. And you're absolutely right. There is this number of, I don't know, it's also changing depending on the source, but it's a huge number of phones which are sitting in the drawers of the people. And for sure, there's a lot of products that are 4, 5, 6 years old and that cannot be used anymore in the resale process. But to be honest, also from my own experience, own experience, let's not go further. I'm sure that there's a lot of products, especially iPhones 2, 3 years old, those are the typical ones, which are sitting in the drawers and for which there is a huge demand and which could still live for 2, 3 years with another person. So the potential is there. And if people ask me about our competition, I always say the biggest competition are the drawers because that's where the products are lying. And if we would be able to access those, this would be the biggest growth kicker eventually.
And do you have ideas about that?
Well, the biggest
curbside collection or something like that.
Yeah. So the biggest thing that we can do is in the end make it more, make it easier for the people to trade in these products, right? And kind of what we are best at is of course our channel on our website, but there's other options. And Sam, in the past, I remember he had a truck driving around, picking up phones from people's houses, right? So this, right, Sam? So
that's right.
Yes. So there are also, I would say, more innovative ways of so to say, bring those products back into the circle. Yeah. Potentially at some point, guerrilla drivers who have time to pick them up.
Yeah, I think there is one question from one of our partners from Tchibo. So if we can unmute and let's see if it works.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, but we want to see you. Maybe we can pull up the window. Does that also work? Yes.
Amazing.
Perfect.
Right.
This is
So
great.
my name is Birte. I'm from Tchibo, and my question is relating to your comment that you usually don't get traded products back that were already sold by rebuy. So in a second circle, do you have any data on the average usage time of your products? Because I was just thinking about whether your customers are also a bit more sustainable using maybe the smartphone more than 2.5 years.
Yeah, it's a very good question, Birte, because so when we were preparing the sustainability report, there was a moment where we really wanted to find out more about this question as well. And our proxy was that we simply say, kind of combine the two questions and kind of look at those customers who've bought from us and traded them in. Like I said, the number was relatively small. If I remember correctly, it was somewhere around 3 years of those products. So used products bought from us and sold back to us, roughly 3 years, if I remember correctly.
Cool, thanks.
Any other? Yes.
Also in regards to the people who sell, is there like a typical profile of how these people, who they are?
Yeah, it's also a kind of a very interesting question. So we do have personas that we are trying to address. At the end, what is interesting is that there are very different types of personas that our business model is addressing. So there are certainly those people who are very, so to say, cost savvy, and who simply want to make sure that they are kind of creating value or making money with the products that they don't need anymore. Then there is the group who is not so cost savvy, but is simply very kind of sustainability driven, who wants to make sure that the products are not laying around because resources are not being used in the most efficient way. And then you have combinations. So students, I think, is a very good, or kind of students is a very precise target group that fits well because cost savvy, so to say, right? Because not the highest income, usually sustainability as a priority. So that's certainly a group that we address or where we see that there's a high volume coming from, but it's really not limited. It's pretty much across society, but of course for very different reasons.
Thanks.
Yes.
May I suggest that we listen to what Sam has to say and we put the questions to the end? Because we have more time for questions, but I'm really curious also.
No, and he has a lot to say. So, Sam, would it be fine to hand over to you?
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Good evening, everyone, and thank you very much for joining us. My name's Sam Hargreaves, and I've been in the recommerce industry for over 10 years. I don't know anything other than recommerce and recycling mobile phones, so please let's keep the questions limited to that. But yeah, it's essentially I've been buying and selling mobile phones since I was around 16 years old, and the industry's changed a lot over the years. So I'd like to give you the insights this evening with regards to how trading programs operate, what they are, and how they might be useful in traditional businesses. So without further ado, I'd like to proceed. So let's just answer the question with regards to what is a trading program. And essentially a trading program is the exchange from consumers for a cash reward or some sort of incentive for recycling their product and reselling it. So recycle could be many things. A lot of people's concepts is that the phones are taken apart for metals and golds and precious sort of objects within them. That is true, but also one really simple kind of use of recycling is reuse as well. And that's where Rebuy specialized in rebuying mobile phones from consumers, giving them a new lease of life and giving them that 3-year warranty. And what we want to do is we want to make it as convenient, simple, quick, and environmentally friendly for the consumers to be able to sell their devices. So we run 2 parts of Rebuy, Rebuy Blue and Rebuy Green. Rebuy Blue is where we sell our products and tech. Rebuy Green is where we buy back, also known as a trading program. So my job as head of partnerships is to get the word out about partnerships with regards to trade-ins and how can we get more devices and more people recycling. And we do that through various methods, and traditional kind of online stores or traditional high street retailers, bricks and mortar. That's where we're very interested in getting our trading programs in and really selling the benefits to it. Next slide, please. So who offers trading programs? It could be retailers, high street retailers going to walk into your local stores. They don't necessarily need to be consumer electronic related, but obviously some sort of technology relation to that kind of recycling service does help. Network carriers, you'd see over the years, brands such as Vodafone and the likes have essentially started moving more into this space. And what we see really within the mobile phone industry is the cost of mobile phones obviously going up in price. We're not really seeing any new innovation. Cameras are very much the same, and I'm not sure for you, but I don't know how good I need the camera on my mobile phone to be. Each year, there's no kind of real new innovation that's come out. And what we find is obviously a secondhand mobile phone does the job just as well. So we actually find obviously carriers are now kind of looking more into this sustainability play, and also recycling of devices is becoming a lot more common. And that's where services like we offer are there to aid that and facilitate that reverse logistics. We also find that manufacturers are learning quick as well on exactly the same play. So when we talk about OEMs, we see Apple and Samsung also offering similar sort of trading services. And that's backed by companies like Rebuy, who would basically be able to provide the facilitation for the reverse logistics of these devices and finding them a new home while rewarding the customer. Next slide. So what are the benefits to the customer? We make it really quick, simple and easy. And that's the real key here. We don't want to make it a hassle for someone recycling their old electronics. We want to make it as easy as possible, and we want to make it as professional as possible. We've got two types of customers that we've always got to think about. The first type of customer is where we're buying the device from and ensuring obviously that they get a fair deal for their product based on the quality and the representation that they make on it. But also we've got to think about the longevity of the device as well. Is this device going to survive 3 years' time? Can we put our 3-year warranty on this device? And that's always a toss-up with regards to what we can actually pay for the value of the device. So at Rebuy, what we do is we offer free and simple shipping for consumers to send their electronics in. We'll grade it for free and professionally inspect it. As you've seen before, we use robotics, but we also use some very coherent testing to ensure that the devices are what they should be. And then what we do is we pay the customer really quick and easy. We want to make the exchange from old secondhand electronics to be in your drawer, through the post into Rebuy, and then the money into your bank account as quick as possible and as painless as possible. So that's what we've built a brand and reputation over the last 14 years. And with over 4 million happy customers, that's what we want to keep doing time and time over with our trading programs. So when we're talking about partners then, we obviously know the benefits now for the customers, and we know the benefits for Rebuy reselling the devices. But what we want to know is what's the benefits for our partners that we work with. And really what that means is it's about the sustainability play. So obviously making sure that they are being as kind of corporate social responsibility as possible with regards to sort of the environmental side of their business, but also as well knowing that when companies partner with us, it is a strong industry leader that's been doing this for over 10 years. And that essentially allows us to partner with a whole wide range of companies. And where we really come into with our partnerships is essentially bolting on our technological service and allowing consumers to essentially recycle their devices. Now, a great case study of this would be our checkout widget. And this has been very popular over the last few years. And essentially what it allows a website or retailer to do, let's say, for example, you have brand new mobile phones or cameras or laptops or whatever the consumer electronic is. The consumer obviously wants to get that product as cheap as possible. With obviously prices rising, inflation, this is where we want to make that product as cheap as possible for the consumer. At the same token, the retailers do not want to obviously have to lower their margins, expectations, or RRP. So where trading service really helps is offering an alternative payment method for that brand new product that they're looking to get. And that's really where our benefits of service come in, essentially putting our checkout widget on there, and allowing people to buy a brand new product while receiving a discount for their secondhand product. And that is a great way for obviously focus on sustainability, but obviously watching out for the consumer's pocket and making sure that we save them money on every step of the way. And that's generally how we find our partnerships work along the way. So really simple, how does the process work? We have multiple options, whether it's on the rebuy website or it's on our partner's website, but the customer would complete a very short form. First of all, what is it that you want to sell to us? We have a wide range of variety of products across the whole of the consumer electronics categories. It's not just mobile phones and tablets that we're interested in. We also do audio hi-fi, MacBooks, Bluetooth speakers, a whole variety of products. I would go on all night, but we're into limited time. So you can check later to see all the products and categories that we do manage. But our CE team would essentially look at the portfolio to see what is available out there to recycle and what is their appetite to recycle. Do people have this in their drawers that they want to get rid of? And that's where we're continuously adding new products to our portfolio to make sure that we have products for people to be able to recycle. From there, we offer really easy shipping methods across multiple locations. So it doesn't matter if you're in Italy, Germany, France, or whether you're in the UK, you can ship the product into rebuy. And this is where we're able to manage the product coming back to us and buy it from any location. We then pride ourselves on speed of grade and testing. To give you an example, in the UK, the very same day that we receive your product, you'll have the money in your bank account subject to passing the grading. So that means that on a Tuesday, let's say, for example, 6 o'clock in the evening, you decide to sell your iPhone. On the Wednesday, DPD will be at your front door, packaging the device up for you, making sure that it's all fully tracked and fully insured coming back to us. On the Thursday morning, we've received it and you've already got the money in your bank account. So it's really that quick and that kind of level of service where we go one extra to make the packaging of the device as comfortable as possible for the customer, but also making sure that the payment is as quick as possible, because we appreciate that they want the money as quick as possible to go and spend on different kind of elements. And that's then once the price is accepted, it's then sold via our platform. So I'll answer a question that I know will come up later. What happens if the device isn't as described? And that's very key for us. So what we like to be very upfront about is making sure that the customer understands exactly the kind of conditions that we buy. And we want to be as clear as possible upfront to the customer, because it doesn't actually make any sense for us to re-quote a customer when the product comes in. It's our brand, obviously, we want to protect. We obviously want the customer to go away feeling very happy with a fantastic service. So upfront, we try to be as transparent as possible with the customer with regards to all of the conditions. On the rebuy website and through some of our partner websites, we actually have a visual representation of how the cosmetics of the device look. This really gives the customer confidence to make sure that they're selecting the right product and selecting the right price, to make sure, obviously, that is how it kind of all goes together. If for any reason, let's say, for example, we receive the device and over the years, I have seen some devices bent like bananas, run over by tanks and the likes, we naturally would have to obviously let the customer know, unfortunately, there is a requotation. We take into consideration how much is it to get it back to as it should be, which is our repair cost. And that's when we present the customer with the price. Now, at this point, the customer is not obliged to accept that price. At any time, they can say, I would like my product back, which is absolutely fine. And we return it free of charge. And that's obviously all part of the rebuy service as to what we offer and how things go. And once the device is rebuy possession, we then find a brand new home for it and offer a 3-year warranty on that product. So all in all, that's how the blue and green side of the rebuy process work and how it all comes together to form a happy journey for over 4 million customers. So to give you a case study as to a traditional establishment where we offer a trade-in service. So Phone House, one of our long-standing clients in the UK, they have over 50 retail stores in the UK. And fantastic business, basically selling brand new handsets to the customers through network operators. Now, where we come in is we offer the facilitation for trade-in for the customers. So when a customer goes online to select a brand new contract that they might take out for 20, 30, 40 pounds per month, what we do is we offer our trade-in widget within their checkout journey. And what that allows the customer to do is not only get a fantastic deal through Phone House on their brand new phone, it also allows them to get cash back on their old device. So at the very same token, it allows the consumer to make a decision to say, I'm already getting a good deal through here, but it's kind of the cherry on the top of the cake where then they can get cash back for their old device. And where our proposition basically comes in and where we found that trading works is by offering that incentive to the customer to say, you're getting a great deal already, but now get even more money back and off of your existing offer, which traditionally would lead for high street retailers and online businesses who don't offer trade-in. It would allow them higher conversion because it means that then, because you're offering a social economic display for the customer with regards to recycling, you're offering money back to the customer. It's just that added reason for the customers to say, I like this brand, I want to use that, I'm getting a good deal, but I also know I can recycle and get some money back in my pocket too. And that's kind of where we've come in as Rebuy, as our collaboration with our partners. Next slide. And give you an idea of the visual representation of how we work. And we'd work in any kind of way with customers with regards to development. And we have our own in-house software development team to work with our clients. And where we really see ourselves is making sure that we want to partner with the clients as much as possible and ultimately share the same vision and goal for recycling as many devices as we can, but giving the utmost best experience to the customers with regards to what we do. And a little bit of an inkling here again with regards to how the service works, with the customers completing the form, devices are graded. And as I say, that payment piece is very important for us. So here in the UK, we very much pride ourselves on same day payment. And that's where people can obviously go and spend the money where they want at the same token. Just on that as well, we also offer with some partners vouchers too. So if, for example, someone goes and trades in a particular website and they want to use a instant gratification voucher onto another website of their choosing, that's where we also offer that as an alternative payment method. Again, this whole convenience thing, making it as easy as possible for the customers. And that's it. That's pretty much it, with a nice big smiley at the end to end the presentation, but just kind of a testimonial from one of our clients with regards to how we kind of work and how we go together. But no, we're very, very excited to partner with companies with similar interests. And the circular economy is definitely, for me, a big belief. My background, I've been a software developer for around about 14 years now, and anything geeky or anything saving the planet, that's kind of my remit. So feel free to add me on LinkedIn or message me on here, but any questions you've got now, I'd love to take some questions.
Cool. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Any questions from the room, first of all, while I read through the comments?
Well, maybe just one or two sentences to add before, and then everybody can kind of collect questions in their heads, and also to what you asked before, right? Is basically the interest of first of all, our bottleneck is sourcing. That's what I already said. Then that's where trade-in sets in. What is interesting is also that the demand for these trade-in programs of more traditional companies seems to be increasing. So while in the past there was more of a so to say sales process to convince those companies, it's more that by now these companies are approaching us and saying, damn, we need a solution. We need some sort of sustainable angle. We heard about Kreislaufwirtschaft, circularity or circular economy, and we have no clue how to address it. Isn't this your core business? And can you help us doing it? So that's interesting. It still doesn't mean that we, this is not yet, so to say, the signing under a partnership, because there's still kind of several steps that need to be taken. And I think that's also something that many of the more traditional companies underestimate, even though we try to make it as seamless as possible. But it's interesting to see that there's at least kind of a shift in the mindset of many of those companies. Yeah, circularity is kind of in the minds of the people. Yeah.
And this is also what I totally can confirm. So we as Panzerglas, we pretty much do the same thing like you. We extend the lifetime of mobile devices by protecting the display, so it's not ending up in a landfill. And in our traditional channels, where Panzerglas is the #1 in screen protection, we can see that at the same time in tandem, when the demand from the end customers is coming for used devices. One example is Swisscom in Switzerland. Well, they now started selling used devices, refurbished devices. And at the same time, they have the need now for a trade-in program. Most likely, this is a white label what you're having. So it's integrated in their cash system. And then it will come. It's unstoppable.
Absolutely.
Also in the traditional channels.
Absolutely. What?
Would you say there's also a chance that you kind of incentivize companies and also customers to not produce longer lasting electronics and or use or buy longer lasting electronics?
So now I've learned, I will try to repeat this question for everyone online. So the question was, are there any ways to create incentives for the OEMs, right? For the OEMs to create products that are longer lasting?
Well, my question was rather if with the trade-in program, you kind of incentivize the companies to actually not build longer lasting products because they know, okay, it's easy, we can kind of
because it makes it more difficult for them to sell new ones.
No, it makes it easier for them to actually say, okay, we can give out a new product like every year, make the former one obsolete because people can just also we take part in those programs.
Okay, so I think I've understood now. Let's see, it's a good check. No, so the question is, do those trade-in programs actually incentivize the OEMs to produce longer-lasting devices, right? Because it provides them an option to keep them longer in the cycle.
Shorter.
So maybe
it's like a proliferating consumption. Because it's so easy to get it back and forth.
Also ist die Gefahr, dass diese Programme so ein bisschen Greenwashing machen können, weil die Leute gar nicht gezwungen sind, bessere, longer-lasting Electronics in den Markt zu bringen, weil sie wissen ja, okay, wir können dieses Trade-Programm machen. Und dann können die Leute es jedes Jahr zurückschicken, wir bringen jedes Jahr ein neues Ding raus, statt es besser zu machen. Und
gute Frage, ehrlich gesagt. Also ich never thought about it kind of this way. My feeling is that, the pressure on the OEMs is there and it's increasing, right? Whether it's kind of Öko-Richtlinie, which is basically pressuring the OEMs to make sure that the software updates are still working on also older devices, whether it's about simply making the hardware longer lasting. I think that's something that is being kind of pressured by consumers and kind of implemented by the politics, and then eventually will lead OEMs to produce products that are longer lasting. Whether the trade-in programs eventually help, to be honest, I don't have a spontaneous answer. But I would definitely take the idea or the thought with me. Maybe someone else in this room has an idea.
No idea on that specific question, but another add-on. So where you actually can see that the pressure on the OEMs is increasing is, for example, the French regulators last year introduced this repair index, which has to be shown on the online, on the offering to the customer. So there actually you see that the OEMs, they don't have a chance to sneak out of this. So they really needs to be clear for the customer, okay, this iPhone has a repair index of 10. So it's very easy to extend the life of this specific product. So I would say the pressure is increasing for the OEMs, not only from the consumer side, but also from the regulatory side.
Absolutely.
Maybe two things.
Yes.
We are also like connecting with each other. So
Yes.
both for offline and online would be great if you said who you are, like what's your name, maybe if you want, like where you come from.
Yeah.
And also there's a couple of questions online. There are people waiting to ask. So maybe we can have them ask next question.
Sure.
I think Johannes or Alina, you can pick. We have to unmute them, right?
I think the first question came by Ulrike about low costs at premium services. So Ulrike, go ahead and ask a question, please.
I can't start the video, but you can hear me?
Yes,
We can hear you, yes.
Yeah, okay, so you summarized it quite properly. It's a rather complex process, and how do you manage to get a profit out of it?
How we managed to make a profit out of it?
Yeah, because it sounds so complex. It sounds very expensive, this process. And how do you manage to make it automated or whatever?
Yeah, no, I think it's a very good question, because in the end, you're absolutely right. It's quite complex, and the whole P&L is not super simple. I think what is important is that in the end, we can play on two sides of the business with prices, right? On the sourcing side and on the sales side. And in between, or the difference basically needs to cover all of the costs plus a certain, so to say, contribution margin to cover all of our overhead costs. What is clear is that we are in competition with business models where these costs don't occur. Yeah, so everybody knows eBay Kleinanzeigen. So the only costs that occur is that the seller or the buyer is going to the house of the seller and is picking up the phone. So the costs seem to be super low. Everybody who has sold or bought the phone on eBay Kleinanzeigen knows that kind of the hidden costs can be extremely high, right? Because simply going there is not simply going there, but there are annoying negotiations. Potentially the product is not working after 2 or 3 months anymore because the buyer doesn't know what has really happened to the phone before. So the hidden costs are very high. We, in our process, take out these costs, and those are eventually covered by the fact that our purchase prices, so the prices we pay through the people selling the product, are lower than on eBay Kleinanzeigen, and the prices we charge from the people buying from us are a bit higher than on eBay Kleinanzeigen. And this difference eventually is able to cover the costs and also covers the, so to say, hidden costs that would occur in a competitive marketplace model. Does it answer your question?
Yeah,
we can be very open and honest here because you could do the exercise yourself. So just to give you an idea, for us, kind of the difference between purchase price and sales price, it depends a little bit, is between somewhere 20 and 30%. And this 20 to 30% afterwards needs to cover the shipment costs, because we cover the shipping of the device to our warehouse, the cleaning, the grading, the storage, of course, interest rates, because it's a very capital intensive business, the marketing costs, and then the shipment costs when it's being sold. And yeah, I mean, the bottom line shows you what I said earlier, the business is profitable. So it's enough to cover the costs if you kind of steer the costs rigidly, I would say. Yes.
Great. Thank you for your answer, and also thank you for your question, Ulrike. We have a next question by Alexis on logistics. Please go ahead.
I mean, it's a derivative of the previous question, but more specifically homing in on the logistics. I mean, going to collect, with DPD, a smartphone is going to be, and shipping it to your location, that's going to be whatever, 4 or 5 euros, and then shipping it to the end customer, it's another 4 or 5 euros. Have you already got 10 euros pure logistics prices for an end product worth whatever, 80, 90 euros. And if that's plus 30% on your ICA, on your purchasing price. Yeah. So, you know, this logistic, the 10 euro logistics is eating up to 50% of your margin. I mean, you know, my rough calculation. So I'm just wondering, is a smartphone really the kind of, is it the ideal product to expend so much logistics on? And wouldn't it be better to do it for MacBooks or things which are worth perhaps 500 euros rather than 50 euros?
Yeah. So maybe I start. I hear that people are questioning whether we are really profitable. But there's also accountant, etc. So PwC is making sure it's not a lie. No, but no, honestly, it's a very good question. But the funny answer is, I think there is hardly a product which is better suited for such a model. It's hardly a product better suited than the smartphone, because it's high value, high ASP. So we are talking about sales prices between 200 and 400 euros here. It's relatively small, meaning the logistics costs aren't too high. I mean, you were saying 5 euros, kind of with DPD pickup, it might be 5 euros. If you work together with DHL, more kind of traditional services, it's actually a little bit cheaper. And that's where kind of the relative logistics costs aren't too high. It's very different if you go into other categories. So, for example, TVs, I think is a category. We've looked into TVs, but we stopped it at some point because, especially because of high logistics costs. You usually do two-man handling, which means eventually one leg already costs between 20 and 25 euros, meaning kind of the two sides of the business, meaning 40 to 50 euros of logistics costs. And that doesn't really work for a product which eventually, I don't know, costs 200, 300 euros. But for smartphones, it's really working pretty well, I have to say. But you need to have a certain ASP in order to make it work. Yeah, it also wouldn't work. I mean, we are talking about consumer electronics here, but we also have a media business. We are buying and selling books. You could imagine, how does that work for books? But for books, it's really working because it's primarily a volume business, and people don't sell to us one book, but they sell to us 10 books or 12 books or 50 books. And that's where the absolute logistics costs are high, but the relative logistics costs are at a level where the business model does make sense.
Maybe a follow-up on that. Yes. Did you ever consider collaborating with any local initiatives like repair shops who might help to scale into different product categories, like could be even white goods or whatnot?
Yeah. So we have considered it, and I think that could be kind of an interesting. Okay, sorry, I'm not learning, so I'm repeating the question so that everybody online also. Yes, if I understood it correctly, the question was if we ever considered working with local shops, potentially also repair shops, in order to kind of extend the expansion potential and make it also this business model feasible for other categories. We've looked into it, but I think it might be a logical extension in the future. For the time being, we still see a lot of potential in our current categories. It's simply a huge market, consumer electronics or smartphones by itself, the consumer electronics as a larger, then we have the media business. So our strategic decision was to rather kind of maintain our leading position and kind of continuously improve the customer experience in our existing categories, which from our perspective work quite well with the sourcing and sales channels and logistics processes that we currently offer. If as soon as we've kind of, so to say, perfectionized this, we might move to also different setups. If we expand to other categories at some point, that might be necessary. So if we think about I don't know, e-bikes, for example. That wouldn't be possible with our business model. You would have to work with kind of local stores. Everything around, or many things which address kind of Kinderwagen, where people would say, perfect product, you use it for 12 months and then it's not needed anymore, high ASP, I mean, how much do they cost? 800, 1,000 euros. It could be interesting from those criteria, but from a logistics perspective, same as TVs, it's not feasible that you would have to work together with the local store.
Follow up the question up from Sebastian from first.
Yes.
So we have to talk about it.
Very good.
Okay. Good.
So there's a couple of more questions. Alina, Johannes?
I think the next question came from Stefan Franke, if that's correct. Yes. Stefan, please present yourself. Who do you work for and what is your question?
Yeah, hi, this is Stefan from Synologis. Hi, Philipp. Just say hi. Very nice speech. Thank you very much. I just have a question about how long is the product on average in the stock from the process from purchase to sale?
Yeah, so it's a bit less than 30 days for consumer electronics. Okay. So it's turning quite fast.
So you do you have, for example, iPhones? I think it's a fast product, and other products are, how we say that, they sleep on the stock.
So average for consumer electronics, like I said, a little less than 30 days. There are high turner. So iPhone 13 would be a good example. We talked about this before, right? Hardly coming in, huge demand. And you have such a function as it's called Kaufalarm on our website. So if people are searching for a product which is currently not available, they set the Kaufalarm and they are being informed as soon as it's there. So there are certain products who are basically never available, because as soon as they become available, people get the message that it's there and it's right away bought, and then the turning time is less than a day eventually. But we don't, especially when it comes to consumer electronics, we hardly have any products who are sitting really over a longer period of time. That simply doesn't make sense for us. There, the media business is different again, because first of all, the value of these products is lower, and you need a much broader assortment, which in the end also requires that you have long tail, like really long tail product, and potentially books which are being bought, I don't know, only every 5, 6, 7, 8 months, but you still need to have them there in order to have the relevance for the people. So big difference between different categories.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think 2D, you said that there were more questions also in the room. So we give the attention back to the room.
Now he doesn't want to anymore. Yeah. But we have another question in the room.
Go ahead.
I'm asking anyways.
Yes.
I was wondering, because you built up the business in 17 years, you said, right? Mm-hmm. Well, products were not designed for circularity. There were no circular business models.
Yes.
And how does that change maybe 4 to 5 years when there are other OEMs or independent companies that also want to share these old products? Mm-hmm. How does that change? Does it make it easier for you because there's more talk about it?
Yeah.
Or does it make it easier for you because the products are designed for repair and refurbishment? Or is it easier for you or more?
So it's a good question. I haven't been there kind of 17 years ago, but I also think it's the question, right? Okay. Can you actually, the people online, can you hear the questions? Did you? Sam is nodding. Yeah. Okay. Good.
No question.
Yeah. Okay. Is it easier nowadays to source these products because kind of circular economy is more common, and kind of living a more circular life is more in the heads of the people, or is it more difficult because there's simply more competition, right? So everything you're saying is certainly clear. There is absolutely more competition and more companies fighting for the products in the drawers, so to say. But from my perspective, of what we are experiencing, the second effect, that people are much more aware of the fact that they can kind of trade in their not needed products anymore is bigger in the end, and the pie is increasing. I think from my perspective, what is important is, so the overall pie is certainly increasing of pre-owned products. I think what for us is super important to be very focused with our offering and very clear in our positioning. Yeah? We won't be able to have the perfect service for everybody out there, but we need to be very clear in the positioning and address a certain type of people. So who are we addressing? We have positioned ourselves as one of the premium players in the market. So people who are selling to us, they don't usually get from us the highest price. If you really want to optimize the price, you go to eBay Kleinanzeigen, for example. But with us, it's hassle-free. You get the money quickly. You don't have to pay for shipping, etc. So those are the customers that we are looking at. For people who are buying from us, it's very similar as well. We don't have the cheapest prices for people buying from us, but we have 3 years of warranty. It's our clear goal to provide the highest quality in the market and the best service in the market. And I think that's important. We won't be able to address every customer out there. We need to be very clear with our positioning. Yeah.
I have one more question. I speak up so everybody online can hear me as well. It goes to Philipp, and also I think Sam talked about it in the process earlier. How do you manage the expectations of the seller? Because me as a seller, I have a certain idea of what this device is still worth. I might think this iPhone 12 is now still worth to me 100 euros, pounds, whatever. But if it's too little, I'd rather give it to my little cousin who is in dire need of a smartphone.
Yeah.
So do you have? I have not used the rebuy platform yet. So if you select or drop down windows, does it give you a corridor saying if this device is still in good working mint condition, then you can expect between that figure and that figure, and so this is an expectation management, and then it comes in and the robot verifies it, and then time, ka-ching, you get the cash. Is that how it works?
That's exactly how it works. I could not have summarized it much better. The only difference is you don't get a range when you've clicked through the 3-4 questions that you need to answer. You actually get a specific price. So it says, I don't know, 219 euros. Yeah. Of course, assuming that the condition is confirmed in our warehouse, and in this part is very kind of important. We have learned over in the past, because just to give you an idea, in the past, by past I mean 2 to 3 years ago, about 1/4 of all the products that were sent into us from customers, we had to send back to them because we weren't able to agree on a final price. Yeah? Meaning 1 out of 4 products, we had to pay shipping to us, shipping back, plus all the operation in between. Plus the customer wasn't happy because they had all this hassle. We didn't solve the problem. And thirdly, we didn't have the products in our stock, which was basically missed sales, because as we said before, sourcing is our bottleneck. That's why we completely, so to say, remodeled our sourcing process in a way that we always thought about how can we manage expectations. It's the biggest, there were several levers, but the biggest lever was to be super transparent in the communication with the customer. So when the customer sent in a product where it was usually the optical condition was different from what the customer assumed, which is very natural because usually you think you have the perfect phone and it basically looks like new. If there was a deviation, then by now we have a very detailed communication where we explain, we're very sorry, we would really still like to buy your product, but the condition is not the same as you suggested initially. And then we send pictures, we really make very precise and show why the condition is lower. And this was really the biggest lever, and the reason why by now we send kind of this send-back rate is below 10%. So also much lower than the market. The market was always around 25%, and for us, for smartphones, we actually currently at 7-8%, which is sent back. Very important. Yeah.
We're almost at the end, but taking advantage of the connection internationally here, we would like to have one last question from the online audience.
Yes, to speed it up, I will read it out for you. So the question is if you have any legal objectives or bureaucracy that makes your business harder or prevents you from anything.
Yes, there are several things that make it harder. Since we are positive thinking, we see it as an opportunity by now because it helps us to differentiate. There are several things. I think one of the topics is certainly CE signs. So I think everybody here is aware of CE signs, which are simply a requirement for products to be sold in the European market. Especially when it comes to consumer electronics, not all of the products out there do have CE signs, especially when it comes to sourcing, of course, internationally, when it comes to sourcing from wholesalers, the channel that we discussed earlier. There's a lot of products out there that don't have the CE signs. And that's an area, for example, where also we several years ago weren't clean. It was a very annoying topic. We decided a few years ago when we said we really want to become a category authority and a premium player to 100% be compliant with the CE regulations. So since then, we're not accepting and not purchasing any products that don't have CE signs anymore. I would say, from what I know, we are the only ones, at least the only ones that I'm aware of, because it is difficult. It also reduces our margins because products without a CE signs are cheaper to source. But that's one of the topics where we said, let's turn this problem or annoyance into so to say, a differentiator in the end. Yeah.
I think I love the discussions and all the questions. It shows that it's a really important topic, and then there's a huge interest in recommerce. But we've come to an end of the official part of the event. So what I would suggest is that, we lucky ones in the room here, we have some beer and we can just catch up and ask all the questions via drink to Philipp and the colleagues here. And for all of you who are online, my colleagues Paul, Alina, and Johannes are there as well. And of course, Sam's also around. So for all of you who want to stay for like an online chit chat, an informal Q&A, please stay online and also ask questions about the program and what's coming up next and how you can be involved. And of course, like Sam's already nodding and eager to answer more questions. But we are going to disconnect now the online and the offline worlds and both enjoy the online and the offline part separately. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.